Humanity's first meeting. The small human vessel glided into the heart of the council station, dwarfed by the surrounding armada of alien crafts that shimmered in colors Alex Reyes had never imagined. The vessel's cockpit trembled slightly as it docked, reminding Alex of the vastness of the world he was about to face. He inhaled deeply, steadying himself, though his heart beat like a warning drum. Envoy Reyes. A voice crackled over the comm. It was his contact, Varys, a tall, slender Zenride diplomat assigned to guide him through the council chambers. Remember, the council sees humanity as a disruptive addition. Today's decision could shape their view of your species forever. Don't give them reason to regret it. Alex pressed his earpiece. Got it, he replied with a forced calm. I'll tread lightly. The council's circular chamber loomed before him, an architectural marvel of gleaming crystal and alien flora that pulsed with a quiet, almost sacred energy. The seats of the council members, elders from all corners of the galaxy, circled him like the watchful eyes of predators. Some members regarded him with thinly veiled suspicion, others with open disdain. He tried not to think about how Earth's past skirmishes in nearby systems have been observed, analyzed, and in some cases condemned. Varys stood beside him, eyes narrowing at the council's murmurs. They're already concerned by your species' tendency for aggression, Varys murmured. Alex's jaw tightened. Earth's coalition had only survived by defending itself against hostile species in a brutal stretch of space. But how could he explain that to beings who viewed any violence as primitive? He had come to prove that humanity was more than its will to survive. Yet even that felt like a foreign concept to them. The council's lead delegate, a wizened creature named Oraxis, whose tendrils glistened with electric blue energy, raised a thin, clawed hand to silence the assembly. Human representative, Oraxis intoned, his voice echoing through the hall. Your species arrives bearing a reputation for chaos and disruption. The council is wary of embracing such an unpredictable force. Speak, and give us reason to believe otherwise. Alex's pulse quickened as he met Oraxis's gaze. He'd prepared for this moment, yet the weight of the council's judgment bore down on him like an ocean's depth. Honorable counselors, he began, his voice firm, humanity may be new to this galaxy, but we understand what it means to survive, just as you do. Our history is filled with resilience, and while our methods may seem harsh, they are born of necessity, not savagery. A murmur rippled through the crowd, followed by a sharp, scoffing laugh from an unseen delegate. Alex clenched his fist, forcing himself to stay composed. Beside him, Varys shifted, his gaze softening slightly, a sliver of sympathy, perhaps, or merely recognition of Alex's challenge. Our presence here, Alex continued, is not to sow discord but to offer alliance. We know strength, yes, but we also know loyalty, and we value peace where it can be found. Humanity can be an ally worth having. Oraxis's gaze lingered, unreadable, before he leaned back, silent. But another counselor, with luminescent scales and a voice like grinding stones, interjected. You claim peace, yet your history speaks of bloodshed. Tell us, human, if pressed, would you not return to violence? Alex's throat tightened. He sensed a trap, one he couldn't easily sidestep. He took a steadying breath, eyes scanning the wary faces around him. If forced to protect our own, he admitted, we will fight. But we've come here to prove that peace is worth fighting for too. We are not conquerors. We're survivors looking for allies in this vast galaxy. The chamber fell silent, tension crackling in the air. Varys's glance darted between Alex and the counselors, his expression unreadable. We shall see, Oraxis finally replied, his voice resonant with finality. Tomorrow, humanity's resolve will face a test. If you pass, perhaps there is a place for your kind among us. Fail, and humanity will be exiled from the council's reach. Alex felt a chill prickling his skin, but he held Oraxis's gaze, his jaw set. Understood? As he turned to leave, Varys gave him a single nod, the faintest hint of respect in his eyes. The council's test. The council chamber was shrouded in a charged silence as Alex and Varys waited to receive their orders. The faint hum of alien machinery pulsed in the air, unsettlingly rhythmic, like the beating of some hidden, mechanical heart. Alex took a steadying breath, willing himself to stay focused, but Varys's anxious glance betrayed his own concerns. A counselor with elongated, jade-colored limbs and shimmering scales that rippled like water rose to address them. "Envoy Reyes," he intoned, his voice a low, resonant hum. "Your species claims to know peace, yet also the arts of war. We will see if you can navigate both paths. Your test will be one of restraint and strategy, not force." A hologram flickered to life in the center of the chamber, projecting a shimmering map of a galactic trade route plagued by Rorg raiders. An infamous species, more beast than being, known for their brutal, predatory nature. Varys's eyes narrowed, his gaze flickering to Alex as the map highlighted the targeted trade zone. "The Rorg have disrupted our routes for decades, ambushing and scavenging ships without discrimination," the counselor continued, his expression severe. "You will engage them. But," he added, his gaze fixed on Alex, "lethal force will be discouraged. Should you prove humanity capable of restraint, your alliance may be reconsidered." Alex stifled a scoff. He'd been sent to prove humanity's worth, yet his first task felt rigged for failure. How could he outwit a species that survived purely by brute strength without meeting them on their own terms? But there was no alternative. Failure meant Earth's isolation, a risk he couldn't afford to take. After the briefing, Alex and Varys walked back to the docking bay. Varys broke the silence first. "The Council's challenge is meant to test your ability to balance force with diplomacy. Many believe your species lacks the ability to show restraint. That's what this is about," Alex muttered, tension thrumming in his jaw. "They expect us to fail." Varys stopped, turning to face him, his gaze a careful assessment. "Perhaps, but for all their doubts, they're intrigued. Show them you can exercise caution. Show them something unexpected." Back on board his ship, Alex briefed his crew, a small, well-trained team sent to represent Earth's best. Their faces reflected a mix of apprehension and determination as he outlined the plan. "Our objective is to disable, not destroy," he explained, highlighting specific weak points on the Rorg vessels that would neutralize their engines and communications without causing critical damage. "We need to make it clear we can resolve conflict without annihilation." One of his officers, a burly lieutenant named Kane, frowned. "Sir, if the Rorg fight back, are we really supposed to just hold back? They're animals. They don't understand anything but force." Alex met Kane's gaze, his tone firm. "Our mission is to prove we can achieve peace without adding to the body count. If we can't do that, then everything we're fighting for is already lost." The tension in the room was palpable, each crew member weighing the difficulty of their orders. But as they departed for the Rorg's hunting grounds, Alex could feel a collective resolve building. They weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to redefine what it meant to be human in this vast, skeptical galaxy. When they arrived, the Rorg vessels were already waiting. Their ships, dark and jagged, hung in the distance like shadows against the stars. Alex's heart pounded as he ordered his team to hold fire, watching as the enemy's ships prowled closer. Then, in an instant, the Rorg attacked, launching a barrage that rocked Alex's vessel. He steadied himself, forcing calm into his voice as he called out orders. "Target engines only. Disable their ships, but don't engage offensively." The battle was tense, every instinct telling Alex to strike back harder. But as they outmaneuvered the Rorg, carefully dismantling their fleet one by one without causing lethal damage, a strange silence settled over the comms. The Rorg, finally realizing they weren't facing the aggression they expected, faltered. It was an unfamiliar tactic for both sides, one that left Alex and his team teetering on a razor's edge between survival and diplomacy. When the last Rorg vessel retreated, Alex allowed himself a moment to breathe. He could feel the weight of his crew's exhaustion. Yet beneath it all, there was something else, a sense of accomplishment. They'd fought the Rorg without spilling blood, proving something not only to the Council, but perhaps to themselves. Varys's voice came over the comm. "The Council has observed your restraint, Envoy Reyes. Your actions will not go unnoticed. Alex allowed himself a grim smile, watching as the roared vessels disappeared into the vastness of space. Good, he replied quietly, because this is only the beginning. The price of peace. Back at the council station, Alex felt the strain of the Rorg engagement weighing on his shoulders. His crew had managed to keep their restraint, but the effort had drained them, physically and mentally. As Alex stepped into the council's chamber, the tension in the air was almost palpable. He could feel the weight of every counselor's gaze as they scrutinized him, assessing his every move. Varys was already inside, standing beside his fellow counselors, his expression unreadable. The council's lead, Araxis, began without ceremony. Envoy Reyes, you have achieved what many deemed impossible. The Rorg retreated without fatalities. However, your test is not yet complete. A murmur spread through the council members, their eyes reflecting a mix of doubt and curiosity. Alex's jaw clenched. Every instinct told him this was the council's way of probing his limits, of pushing him to a breaking point. He forced his voice to remain steady. I thought we'd proven ourselves capable of restraint. What more must we do? Araxis's cold eyes held his gaze. You demonstrated restraint, yes, but the galaxy is not built on peaceful negotiations alone. There are forces far more insidious than the Rorg, forces that cannot be repelled by words or acts of mercy. He leaned forward, his gaze piercing. Your final test is one of loyalty. There is a traitor among us, one who has shared our secrets with hostile factions. Identify and confront them. The air grew thick with anticipation. Alex's mind raced, caught off guard by the unexpected task. He had trained for battles, for negotiations, but espionage within the council? Varys caught his eye, his expression carefully blank. Yet Alex sensed something beneath the surface. Was it caution? Or perhaps distrust? Varys will accompany you, Araxis continued, his tone leaving no room for argument. He has been briefed on the matter and will assist in your investigation. Varys's nod was barely perceptible, and as they exited the chamber, Alex could feel his own suspicion beginning to form. Once they were alone, Varys spoke in a low voice. The council chose you for this task for a reason, Reyes. They're curious to see if you can hold to your ideals, even when surrounded by doubt. Alex glanced at him sharply. Are they testing my ideals or my allegiance? Perhaps both, Varys replied, his tone unreadable. But know this. You are not the only one under scrutiny. The council believes I may be compromised as well. His voice dropped even lower, a whisper between conspirators. We are being watched, and there are those among the council who would prefer to see you fail. They made their way to the council's archives, an immense, dimly lit space filled with holographic records and sealed data files. Varys moved through the files swiftly, his slender fingers dancing over the interface as he accessed restricted documents, his every movement cautious yet deliberate. Whoever our traitor is, Varys murmured, they have a precise understanding of council operations. They're close, trusted. We'll have to tread carefully. Hours passed as they pored over encrypted messages, logs, and classified files. Finally, they uncovered a pattern, a series of unauthorized data extractions coded with a distinct signature. The name associated with the access code made Varys freeze, his eyes widening. It's impossible, he breathed, his voice barely audible. This access belongs to Oroba, the counselor responsible for interspecies relations. Alex raised an eyebrow. The same counselor who questioned humanity's loyalty from the beginning? Varys nodded, his expression grim. If Oroba has been leaking sensitive data to hostile factions, it could mean the council's trust has been betrayed from within its very core. Suddenly, footsteps echoed down the corridor. Varys shot Alex a warning look, then stepped forward to confront the approaching figure. It was Oroba, her long, silvered robes flowing around her as she moved with a deliberate, predatory grace. She stopped, her gaze sliding over Alex and settling on Varys. Varys, she said smoothly, her voice soft yet filled with menace. I see you have chosen an interesting ally for your investigation. Varys's posture remained calm, but Alex could feel the tension rolling off him. "We're conducting a routine review, Counselor Aroba. Nothing more." Aroba's gaze hardened, a glint of dangerous amusement flashing in her eyes. "Is that so? Then perhaps I'll stay and observe." She paused, glancing at Alex with a chilling smile. "Unless your human friend feels out of place." Alex met her gaze unflinchingly. "I'm right where I need to be, Counselor." A dangerous silence fell between them, the weight of Aroba's gaze laced with barely veiled threats. The chamber lights dimmed, shadows casting eerie shapes around them. Alex knew they were treading on thin ice, but he stood firm, his purpose clear. He hadn't come all this way to back down now. "We'll see how long that lasts," Aroba said, her tone dripping with dark promise. As she turned and disappeared down the hall, Alex exhaled, glancing at Varys. "The council wanted a test," he murmured. "Looks like we're in the middle of it." Varys nodded, his eyes clouded with tension. "And if we're not careful, we may be its next casualties." Truce and triumph. Alex's pulse quickened as he and Varys made their way through the labyrinthine council archives, Aroba's threat still looming over them. They had found damning evidence, but exposing it without falling victim to Aroba's influence would be nearly impossible. Varys moved with a renewed sense of urgency, his gaze darting back every few seconds, watching for shadows. "We'll need more than data signatures to convince the council," Varys whispered, his voice barely carrying above the hum of distant machinery. "Aroba's power runs deep. She'll have safeguards, evidence to counter any claim we make." Alex nodded, his mind racing. "Then we need a witness. Someone who can't be silenced." Varys paused, his eyes flickering with realization. "The Rorg," he murmured. "Aroba's secret dealings have been with factions they consider rivals. If we can reach them, they might be willing to testify against her." The plan was bold, borderline reckless. But Alex knew they had no time for cautious strategies. He tapped his communicator, sending an encrypted message to reach the Rorg ship's captain, whom he had spoken to just hours earlier. "We only get one shot at this," Alex said, determination stealing his voice. "If Aroba catches wind." A faint beeping from his communicator interrupted him. The Rorg had agreed to meet. Their ship was still in orbit, on the fringes of Council territory, shielded from direct scans but close enough for a rendezvous. They slipped into the docking bay, keeping to the shadows, and boarded Alex's small vessel. Varys sat at the co-pilot's chair, his usual calm demeanor replaced with a glint of excitement mixed with apprehension. As they left the station, the Rorg vessel appeared on their screens, a hulking shape against the darkness. They docked, and moments later, Alex found himself face-to-face with the Rorg captain, a towering figure whose chitinous armor reflected the dim lights of the ship's hull. "We meet again, human," the captain greeted, his voice a deep rumble. "But I sense this is more than a call for peace." Alex straightened, his gaze steady. "Captain, we believe a member of the Galactic Council has been colluding against you, inciting conflicts for her own ends. We need your help to reveal her treachery." The captain's eyes narrowed, his interest clearly piqued. "And you think I would testify to this corruption?" "We can protect you within council space," Varys interjected, his voice firm. "But if Aroba succeeds, she'll pit faction against faction, fueling war across the galaxy. Your people would bear the brunt of it." A long silence fell as the Rorg captain considered their proposal. Finally, he inclined his head. "If it means the survival of my kin, I will stand against her." They returned to the council station, keeping the captain's presence cloaked from scans. Varys took the lead, presenting the evidence of Aroba's encrypted transmissions and bringing the Rorg captain forward as a witness. As the council members gathered, Alex could feel the weight of the moment pressing on him. This was it. Either they would succeed, or Aroba's shadow would consume them all. Aroba was summoned before the council, her expression one of barely masked fury as she entered the chamber and took in the scene. Her eyes darted to Alex, then to Varys and the Rorg captain, her mouth curling into a sneer. "Is this the human's idea of justice?" she spat. "Bringing outsiders to settle council affairs?" Araxis held up a hand, his face stern. "The council exists to protect all species, Counselor Aroba. If you have violated that trust, we are bound to know. The roared captain stepped forward, his voice resonating with restrained anger. You, Oroba, sought to exploit my people for your personal gain, attempting to turn us against the Council's allies. I am here to expose your deceit. For a moment, Oroba seemed to falter. Then, with a sudden fury, she lunged forward, her voice filled with venom. You fools! The Council has grown weak under the weight of diplomacy and compassion. It is only through power that we can ensure survival. The chamber erupted into chaos, but Araxis rose, his voice commanding. Counselor Oroba, you are hereby stripped of your position and placed under arrest for crimes against the Council and its citizens. As security took her away, Alex felt a wave of relief wash over him. Varys placed a hand on his shoulder, a quiet acknowledgement of the risk they had both taken. Once the chamber cleared, Araxis approached Alex. You've proven something vital today, Envoy Reyes. Humanity has the resolve not only to fight, but to protect what matters most. Welcome to the Galactic Council. Alex nodded, humbled. He had started this mission as a test, but now he felt part of something far larger, an alliance forged not only in power, but in unity. The Council's future, once marred by hidden agendas and division, now seemed brighter, a beacon of hope across the stars.